I know the difference between a blueprint and a fantasy. I spent 40 years as a structural engineer, and I learned early that some cracks are just cosmetic, but others mean the whole building is about to collapse. I just never thought I'd be applying that lesson to my own family. My name is Robert Kane. I'm 63 years old, and until 3 weeks ago, I thought I had built something solid. A wife of 35 years, 2 sons I put through college, a son-in-law I welcomed into our family like he was my own blood, a successful engineering firm I'd built from nothing, a legacy. Turns out, I was wrong about all of it. It started on a Tuesday. I remember, because Tuesdays are when I do site inspections for the Mitchell Tower project, a 20-story commercial building downtown. My project manager, Tom Chen, was with me on the 18th floor when I felt it. Not pain exactly, more like someone had wrapped a steel cable around my chest and was cranking it tighter with every breath. Tom noticed before I said anything. 40 years in construction teaches you to spot when something's wrong with the structure. Bob, you okay? You look gray. I tried to wave him off, but my left arm had gone numb. The cable around my chest pulled tighter. I knew what this was. My father died of a heart attack at 61. My uncle at 58. The Kane family curse, my mother used to call it. Tom, I managed to say, call 911. The next 20 minutes are a blur. Paramedics, oxygen mask, the ceiling of the ambulance. But I remember one thing crystal clear. The young EMT, probably 25, asking me if there was anyone they should call. My wife, I told him. Margaret Kane. He dialed the number I gave him, put his phone on speaker so I could hear. It rang 4 times. Then Margaret's voice, annoyed. Hello? Mrs. Kane? This is Jackson County EMS. Your husband, Robert, is experiencing a cardiac event. We're transporting him to Memorial Hospital right now. He's stable, but you should meet us there as soon as possible. There was a pause. In the background, I heard music. Laughter. The clink of glasses. Is he conscious? Margaret asked. Yes, ma'am. He's awake and... Then tell him I'll come by tomorrow. We're in the middle of something important here. The EMT looked at me, confused. Ma'am, this is a serious medical emergency. Your husband could be having a heart attack. Jackson, honestly, Robert has always been dramatic about his health. Last month, he thought he had the flu, and it was just allergies. I'm not rushing across town for another false alarm. Jackson. She called the paramedic by his name like she knew him. Like this was some kind of casual conversation. Mrs. Kane, I really think. Tell Robert I'll see him tomorrow. I need to get back to the party. Kyle's announcement is in 10 minutes, and I'm not missing it. She hung up. The paramedic stared at his phone like it had just grown teeth. Tom, who had followed the ambulance in his truck, had gone white. Bob, I'm sure she probably didn't understand how serious. But I understood perfectly. Kyle, my son-in-law, married to my daughter Jennifer for 3 years. The party was at my house, the house I'd paid off 15 years ago, the house where Margaret still lived because I'd never asked her to contribute to anything. The party was happening in my living room, paid for with my money. While I was dying, at the hospital, they rushed me into the ER. A cardiologist named Dr. Reeves, maybe 50, all business, told me I'd had a major cardiac event. Not quite a full heart attack, but close enough that I needed emergency surgery. A stent, maybe 2. We need to operate within the next few hours, she said. The blockage is severe. Who should we contact as your next of kin? I gave her Margaret's number again, and my son David's, and Jennifer's. Dr. Reeves stepped out to make the calls. I lay there under the fluorescent lights, listening to the steady beep of the heart monitor, trying to make sense of what had just happened. 20 minutes later, Dr. Reeves came back. Her professional mask had slipped just enough that I could see the disgust underneath. Mr. Kane, I spoke with your wife. She said she would try to come by in the morning. I explained that you're going into surgery tonight and that there are risks with any cardiac procedure. But she said, and I quote, Robert has good insurance. He'll be fine. Call me if something actually goes wrong. My heart monitor picked up speed. The doctor noticed. Mr. Kane, I need you to stay calm. Your son David didn't answer. Your daughter, Jennifer, did answer. But she said she couldn't leave the party. Something about an announcement that couldn't be postponed. She paused, then added quietly, in 30 years of medicine, I've never had an entire family refuse to come to the hospital for a surgery like this. They wheeled me into the OR at 8:15 p.m. The anesthesiologist, a kind-faced woman named Dr. Patel, held my hand as they put the mask over my face. Don't worry, Mr. Kane. We'll take good care of you. When you wake up, I'm sure your family will be here. But I knew better. As the drugs pulled me under, my last thought was of that cable around my chest. It wasn't physical. It was the slow realization that the people I'd spent 40 years supporting didn't actually care if I lived or died. I woke up 6 hours later in the ICU. Tubes everywhere, chest on fire. A nurse named Patricia was checking my vitals. Welcome back, Mr. Kane. Surgery went well. Dr. Reeves will be by in a few hours to explain everything, but you're going to be okay. My family? I croaked. Patricia's smile faded. No visitors yet. But it's 4 a.m. I'm sure they'll come once visiting hours start. They didn't. Visiting hours started at 8. By noon, my room was still empty. Patricia kept finding excuses to check on me, clearly uncomfortable with the fact that no one had shown up. Around 1 p.m., she brought me my phone from the belongings bag. Maybe you want to call someone? A friend? I had 73 unread messages. I opened them with shaking hands. The first was from David, sent at 9 p.m. the night before. Dad, can't make it tonight. Big day tomorrow. Hope surgery goes well. Jennifer, 9:15 p.m. Dad, I know this seems bad, but Kyle's announcement was huge. I'll explain when I see you. Feel better. Margaret, 10:30 p.m. Robert, stop being dramatic. You're fine. The doctors are taking care of you. Fine. You and doctors. I'll come by Thursday. Thursday. That was 3 days away. I scrolled further. There was a group chat I didn't recognize. Kane. Family. Private. Margaret must have added me to it months ago, and I'd never noticed. The messages started at 8 p.m., right when I was going into surgery. Margaret. Okay, he's in surgery. We have a few hours. Kyle, you're up. Kyle. Thanks, Mom. Everyone, Jennifer and I have an announcement. Jennifer. We're pregnant. 12 weeks. A flood of congratulations. Heart emojis. Champagne bottles. But then, the conversation shifted. David's wife, Cheryl. So when are we telling Bob about the investment opportunity? Kyle. After the baby comes. He'll be more generous when there's a grandkid involved. David. True. Dad never says no when kids are in the picture. Margaret. Speaking of which, has anyone checked if the surgery went okay? Jennifer. Mom, he's fine. Bob has the constitution of an ox. Remember when he worked through that pneumonia? Kyle. Besides, if something did happen, Jennifer and I are primary beneficiaries on the life insurance. Right? My hands went numb. The heart monitor started beeping faster. Patricia rushed in. Mr. Kane, you need to stay calm. What's wrong? I couldn't speak. I just stared at my phone. Kyle. My son-in-law, who I'd hired at my firm, who I'd given a senior project manager position despite him having minimal experience, who I'd trusted, was discussing my life insurance policy while I was in surgery. Patricia gently took the phone from my hands. Whatever you just read, it's not worth your health. Let me get Dr. Reeves. But I grabbed her arm. Wait, can you take screenshots of those messages? All of them? She looked at me for a long moment, then nodded. I'll be right back. Dr. Reeves came in an hour later. She confirmed what I already knew. The surgery had been successful, but I'd been closer to death than anyone realized. Another hour without the stent, and I probably wouldn't have made it. Your heart is stable now, but Mr. Kane, you need support. Is there someone who can do that? I thought about Margaret, who couldn't be bothered to show up. David, who had a big day that was more important than his father's survival. Jennifer, celebrating a pregnancy announcement while I was being cut open. I'll figure it out, I said. Patricia came back that evening with a tablet. She'd screenshot everything and uploaded it to a cloud drive. She also gave me something else. A small security camera. My brother works in tech, she explained. This is a nanny cam. You can set it up on your phone to monitor anywhere you want. I stayed in the hospital for 3 more days. Not one member of my family visited. Margaret texted once. Heard you're doing fine. See you when you get home. Tom Chen visited every day. Brought me real food from the deli I liked. Sat with me during the lonely afternoons. On the 3rd day, he brought my laptop and some files from the office. Thought you might want to review the Mitchell project specs, he said. Keep your mind sharp, but I didn't review project specs. I reviewed something else entirely. I pulled up my firm's internal files. Kane Engineering employed 43 people. I was the principal owner, but over the years, I'd given shares to family members. Margaret had 10%. David had 15%. Jennifer had 15%. Kyle, as a senior project manager and family member, had access to almost everything. I started going through our financial records, transaction by transaction. It took me 6 hours, but I found it. Over the past 18 months, someone had been siphoning money from our business accounts. Small amounts at first, 500 here, 1,000 there. But in the last 6 months, the amounts had grown, 20,000, 30,000. The most recent withdrawal, just last week, was $50,000. All of the transactions were authorized by Kyle's access codes. I dug deeper. The money was going to a company called Pinnacle Ventures LLC. I ran the registration. The company had been formed 8 months ago. The registered agent was Kyle Morrison. The secondary member was Jennifer Kane Morrison. They'd stolen over $400,000 from my company. From me. I sat back in the hospital bed, my surgical incisions aching, and I started to laugh. It hurt my chest, but I couldn't stop. Patricia poked her head in, concerned, but I waved her off. I'm fine, I said. I just figured out that my family has been robbing me blind. That night, I made a plan. Not out of anger, though I was angry. Not out of spite, though I felt plenty of that too. But out of something colder and more deliberate. I'd built structures my whole life. Now I was going to dismantle one. First, I called my lawyer, Edward Moss. We'd worked together for 20 years. I explained everything. The surgery, the messages, the theft. Jesus, Bob, he said. I'm so sorry. What do you want to do? Everything legal, I said. But I want them to feel it. Edward understood. Give me 48 hours. Next, I called my accountant, Lisa Tran. Explained the same story. Lisa, I need you to freeze everything, every joint account, every business account that has family access. Everything. Except my personal operating account. When? She asked. Tomorrow, 9 a.m. The third call was the hardest. I called my sister, Helen. She lived in Seattle, and we weren't particularly close, but she was the only family member I still trusted. Bobby? She hadn't called me that since we were kids. What's wrong? I told her everything. When I finished, there was a long silence. I'm flying out tomorrow, she said. You don't recover from heart surgery alone. Helen, you don't have to. Shut up, Bobby. I'm coming. I was discharged on Friday morning. Helen picked me up. Margaret had texted that she couldn't get away from the house because she was organizing something important. Helen drove me to a hotel instead of home. A nice one downtown, the Grandview Suites. I'd stayed there before for business. The staff knew me. You're not going back to that house, Helen said firmly. Not until you're ready. She was right. I wasn't ready to face them. Not yet. From the hotel room, I watched everything unfold through the nanny cam Patricia had given me. I'd had Tom install it in my home office 3 days earlier. Hidden behind a stack of books, the camera had a clear view of my desk, where I knew they'd eventually gather. I didn't have to wait long. Friday afternoon. Margaret, David, Cheryl, Jennifer, and Kyle all congregated in my office. I watched on my tablet as Kyle sat in my chair, feet up on my desk. "Okay," he said. "Bob should be home from the hospital in a few hours. We need to have the conversation today." Margaret nodded. "He's weak right now. Vulnerable. This is the perfect time to get him to invest in Pinnacle." David leaned forward. "How much are we asking for?" $500,000, Kyle said. "We tell him it's a real estate investment opportunity. Commercial properties in the tech corridor. Can't miss." Jennifer was pacing. "What if he asks questions?" "Dad always asks questions. Then we show him the fake prospectus I had made," Kyle said, pulling out a document. "It's professional. He won't know the difference." Cheryl, who I'd always thought was smarter than David, looked uncomfortable. "What if he figures out we've already taken money from the business?" Kyle waved dismissively. "He won't. The old man barely looks at the books anymore. He trusts me." Trusted. Past tense. I saved the recording. Past tense. I saved the recording. 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 That evening, Edward called me back. "Everything's in place. I filed the paperwork for the emergency corporate restructuring. As of Monday morning, you're the sole signatory on all Kane Engineering accounts. Everyone else's access is revoked." "The theft charges?" I asked. "I've prepared the documentation. $437,000. Misappropriated by Kyle Morrison and Jennifer Kane Morrison. We have the transaction records, the shell company registration. Everything. Do you want me to file with the police?" I thought about Jennifer. My daughter. The little girl I'd taught to ride a bike. Who I'd walked down the aisle 3 years ago. "Not yet," I said. "I want them to know it's coming." Lisa Tran called next. "Bob, everything's frozen." I sent the notifications. "They're probably seeing them right now." I pulled up the nanny cam feed. Kyle was at my desk, laptop open. His face had gone pale. "What the hell?" he said, loud enough for the camera to pick up. "All the accounts are locked." Margaret rushed over. "What do you mean locked?" "I mean I can't access anything. Kane Engineering accounts, the joint accounts, everything shows access denied." David tried his phone. "Mine too. What's going on?" Jennifer was crying. "This can't be happening. We have vendors to pay. The baby's room furniture was supposed to be delivered tomorrow." Kyle slammed the laptop shut. "That son of a bitch. He knows. How could he know?" Margaret's voice was shrill. "He's been in the hospital. Hospital. I don't know how, but he knows. And he's cutting us off." I watched as my family dissolved into panic. Accusations flew. Whose fault was it? Who had been sloppy? Why hadn't they been more careful? Finally, Margaret took control. "Everyone calm down. We go to the hospital. We talk to Robert. We fix this." But I wasn't at the hospital. And I wasn't planning to fix anything. Saturday morning, I felt strong enough to take the next step. Helen drove me to Kane Engineering's office. It was early, before anyone else would be there. I had Tom meet us. "Tom, I'm making some changes," I said. "Effective immediately. You're now Chief Operating Officer. 20% ownership stake in the firm." Tom's jaw dropped. "Bob, I don't know what to say." "Say yes. You've been loyal to me for 15 years. You were there when no one else was. This company needs someone I can trust." We spent the next 3 hours going through files. I transferred everything Kyle had worked on to Tom and 2 other senior engineers I trusted. I drafted a termination letter for Kyle. Effective immediately. citing misappropriation of company funds. Then I did something harder. I removed David and Jennifer from the company ownership structure. Edward had prepared the paperwork. As the principal owner, I had the right to buy back shares in cases of misconduct. I was exercising that right. By noon, Kane Engineering belonged to me, Tom, and our employees. My family had been completely removed. The calls started around 2 p.m. First Margaret, then David, then Jennifer. I didn't answer. Instead, I sent a group text to all three. I know about the theft. I know about Pinnacle Ventures. I know about the conversations during my surgery. My phone exploded with calls and messages. I turned it off. Sunday was quiet. Helen made me rest. Dr. Reeves had been clear. No stress, proper recovery, or I'd end up back in the hospital. But I felt stronger than I had in years. Lighter, like I'd finally removed a weight I'd been carrying for decades. Monday morning, Edward filed the police report. Kyle Morrison and Jennifer Kane Morrison were officially under investigation for embezzlement and fraud. By Monday afternoon, the story had hit the local news. Local engineering firm files charges against family members. They didn't name names yet, but everyone in our industry knew who Kane Engineering was. My phone started ringing with a different kind of call. Colleagues, clients, everyone expressing support, telling me they'd always thought something was off about Kyle, about how sorry they were about Jennifer. Tuesday, the real consequences started. Kyle and Jennifer showed up at my hotel. Security called my room. I told them I didn't want visitors, but I pulled up the lobby camera feed on my tablet. Jennifer looked terrible. Swollen eyes, no makeup, wearing sweatpants. Kyle looked furious. "You can't do this to us," he was shouting at the security guard. "That's my father-in-law. I work for him." "Worked," the guard corrected. Past tense. "And he doesn't want to see you." Jennifer collapsed into a chair, sobbing. Kyle paced like a caged animal. Finally, they left. Wednesday, the bank foreclosed on Kyle and Jennifer's house. Turns out they'd taken out a second mortgage to fund Pinnacle Ventures, betting they could pay it back with money stolen from my company. When I froze the accounts, they'd missed 2 payments. The bank moved fast. David and Cheryl weren't much better off. They'd invested their savings in Pinnacle too, thinking it was a sure thing. Now, they were facing bankruptcy. Margaret called from our house, hysterical. "Robert, please. You're destroying our family. Whatever happened, we can fix it. Just talk to me." I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. But then I remembered her voice on that ambulance phone call. "Tell him I'll come by tomorrow." "Margaret," I said calmly, "I'm filing for divorce. You'll receive the papers by the end of the week. The house is in my name. You have 30 days to move out." "You can't do this. I'm your wife. You were my wife. Now you're just someone who couldn't be bothered to show up when I was dying." I hung up. The divorce papers were delivered Friday. Edward had been thorough. 35 years of marriage. But we'd had a prenup. Margaret had signed it without reading it carefully, assuming she'd never need to worry about it. The prenup was ironclad. She'd get nothing except what she'd brought into the marriage, which was almost nothing. By the following Monday, 2 weeks after my surgery, my old life had been completely dismantled. Kyle had been arrested. The evidence was overwhelming. Jennifer, as a co-conspirator, was facing charges too. Both were looking at 5 to 7 years in prison. David and Cheryl had filed for bankruptcy. They'd lost everything betting on Kyle's fake investment scheme. Margaret was living in a studio apartment downtown, working at a department store to pay rent. Without my income, without the house, without the lifestyle she'd built on my back, she'd discovered that she had no marketable skills and no friends who wanted to associate with her. The Kane family legacy I'd thought I was building had collapsed like a structure with no foundation, but something else was being built in its place. Tom had taken over day-to-day operations at Kane Engineering, and the company was thriving. Without Kyle's mismanagement and theft, We were more profitable than we'd been in years. I promoted 3 younger engineers to partner level. We started a scholarship program for engineering students from disadvantaged backgrounds. Helen stayed in town. We had dinner every week. She'd tell me stories about our childhood, memories I'd forgotten in the rush of building a career and a family that didn't care about me. Patricia, the ICU nurse, became a friend. She'd check in every few weeks to see how my recovery was going. We'd get coffee and talk about everything, except my heart condition. I started teaching an engineering ethics course at the local university. 1 class a week, talking to young engineers about integrity, about building things that last, about knowing when a structure is unsound. 3 months after my surgery, I was sitting in a coffee shop near campus when I saw Jennifer. She was pregnant now, showing. She was with a public defender, clearly discussing her case. When she saw me, she froze. For a moment, I thought she might come over, apologize, explain, beg, but she just looked at me with empty eyes and turned away. I finished my coffee and left. There was nothing more to say. 6 months after my surgery, the trial concluded. Kyle got 7 years. Jennifer, because she cooperated and because of the pregnancy, got 3 years and probation. David wasn't charged criminally, but he'd lost his business, his house, and his marriage. Cheryl had filed for divorce. Margaret sent me a letter. I almost didn't open it, but curiosity won. Robert, it read, I know you'll never forgive me. I don't expect you to. I just want you to know that I'm sorry. Not for what I did, because I can't change that, but for who I became. You deserved better. I hope you found it. I burned the letter. I'm 64 now. A year has passed since that Tuesday afternoon, when my chest seized up on the 18th floor of the Mitchell Tower. A year since I learned the difference between family and the people who show up when you need them. The Mitchell Tower was completed last month. 20 stories of steel and glass, built on a foundation that will last 100 years. Tom and I stood at the opening ceremony, watching the ribbon cutting, and I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Pride, not in my children, or my marriage, or the family legacy I'd tried to build. In the knowledge that some things are built to last, and some things are just facades. I know the difference now, and I know that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is walk away from a crumbling building before it falls on top of you. My name is Robert Kane. I'm a structural engineer, and I finally learned to apply my professional expertise to my personal life. Some foundations can't be saved. Sometimes you have to start over from scratch, and sometimes the best thing you can build is a life without the people who never valued you in the first place.